where I am. Good. Too loud?
Not loud enough.
Not loud enough. Okay, I might have to pick this thing up. So good afternoon. I'm Peter Morgan. I'll be your moderator tonight. I live outside of Twisp. I've been in the valley for 10 years, which makes me not exactly a newcomer, but pretty close. Most of the people I know have been there a long time, including most of the people in the room. Some of you know me. I did some of these forums a couple of years ago and passed the baton to others, and they're not available tonight, so here I am. So first of all, thanks so much everyone for coming and braving the elements. It's 92 degrees out, which is 22 degrees cooler than it was a year ago this time. You remember that. I want to thank the people of the Grange for doing this. People put in a lot of effort getting this organized, and particularly Wendy Braden, who's our chief organizer and has done a ton of work. Val Hicker is our flag waver, our timer, and sergeant at arms, so she'll be the one cutting off the mics. Simon Lindell, who is doing the audio and video, so we're recording this. So it'll be posted, I'm not sure where, but it will be posted, and I'll announce that later. Terry Dixon, who you just introduced, and Maria Komanek. Maria, where are you? Maria will be on our page, so she'll be collecting questions from the audience. So when you have a question you want submitted for the second half, just hold it up and Maria will come and collect it from you. So let's see, other logistics. Just a reminder that this isn't a debate in the classic sense. It's also not a public forum where you're here to tell the candidates what you think. Actually, we're here for you to find out what they think. So we want to make sure that you're aware that this is what that's about. And if you really have something on your mind, I think the candidates are willing to stick around at the end if you haven't met them already, and they'll be willing to chat with you, right? So that's your opportunity. So I'll be asking all the questions. There'll be the first set of questions that have been submitted and vetted, and a number of us have phoned them. And then we'll be taking questions from the audience that you have submitted, either when you came in or might still have the opportunity. We have a team here, Susan Hemsworth, Steve Dixon, who are sorting through them madly and actually maybe combining some to get to the key of the questions. Other things, etiquette, please be as quiet as you can, because the sound that comes from the audience actually can disrupt, our recording. And also, please, no applause, no comments, no booing. This is a very civil event. We want to hear what you have to say. So please keep your feelings to yourself about the answers that you get. And also, no cell phones. That's a reminder to me. I need to turn mine off. So everybody can reach into your cell phone and put it on mute or just turn it off.
No talking on the cell phones.
You're good in life.
Yeah, good. So again, thanks all of you for coming. This is really important that you're here. This is a classic act of democracy to come and find out what these candidates are all about. And just a reminder that the ballots for the primary will go out on July 15th, and voting day is on the 8th, so make sure you look for your ballots. So finally, I want to say thanks to the candidates for deciding to run for office. It's a huge responsibility to do what you do, and by being here, we want you to know that we appreciate that. And I know I haven't been in a public office, but I get a sense that when your phone rings and you pick it up, it's not someone there to shower you with love and appreciation for all you do. It's usually quite the opposite. So that's often the thanks you get for being in public service. But we want you to know that we appreciate it, and I hope that, can we give them a round of applause for So to the candidates, just a reminder that you'll be responding to a series of questions. We've already drawn straws for the unscripted ones, so we know who's going first, but then we'll rotate. So, you know, a different person goes first, second, and third each time, and we get to rotate through. So hopefully we'll get through about 5 of the prepared ahead of time questions, and then, you know, we'll do, in the second half, we'll do questions that have been submitted by the audience, even though most of them have come from the public already anyway. Candidates will have, for the prepared questions, 1 minute for the first one, 2 for the second one, and then subsequently, 2 for the first, and right next, Wendy.
And also, I think, make sure they can hear you in the back, because you might need to hold that up. I didn't know you were going to be standing up.
Okay, can you hear me in the back? You want me to hold the mic up? Was that an up or a down?
Yes.
You can hear, okay.
Hold it up.
Hold it up, okay. I can do that. Ooh. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's see, what else? You get 1 minute for each subsequent question. Val will be holding up the yellow flag when it's 45 seconds to go, and the red flag when it's a minute. 15 seconds to go, right? See, that's why we have a village here to manage me. And you'll have, you'll each get 2 rebuttals, and you have a paddle that you can hold up if you want to rebut. And we'll wait till the end of that question and then handle the rebuttals. Okay, I think that is it. And we said this would take about 10 minutes, and it did. So if we're ready to record, any questions from the audience or any procedural questions from our candidates? Okay. Well, we're going to start with the first question and just go 1, 2, 3, and no, but that's on the unprepared ones. We're just going to go straight through because they're less sensitive. So, you know, Paul, if you want to begin, and then when we get to the second question, why don't we just come back the other way? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So the questions are: first question is, tell us about yourself and what makes you the best candidate.
So my name is Paul Boudreau. I am currently the chief of police for Twisp. Since we only have the 2 minutes, we're gonna make it real quick. 38 years of law enforcement experience. I've ran around the country evaluating police departments. I've been a director of emergency management for the tribe that I was a chief for 8 years. I am the director of emergency management here for the town of Twisp. I've been here 11, almost 12 years. I have managed numerous incidents within the emergency management level, have supervised people throughout the country. I've evaluated, again, police departments and their use of force policies, helped to rewrite that, been a professional witness in anything that has to do with use of force. And been, again, held pretty much every position you can hold within a police department outside of the administration sides, as a patrol officer would handle, except for undercover work. And I didn't handle undercover work because I ran a drug dog and worked with the task force in that. I again started in the jail when I was with the sheriff's office in Skagit County. I know enough about the jail and how things work, but I do not know how to run a jail. And so that's where I will be putting people in expert positions throughout my candidates.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tony Hawley. I've had the privilege and honor of being your sheriff for this last 4 years. I thank you for that. It's been one heck of a ride, as everybody's been experiencing some of the things that have gone on across our nation and through our county. So I started, I graduated high school from Okanogan High School in 1990. I then served 4 years active duty United States Marine Corps, and then I came home and decided to start working in the jail. I worked in the jail just under 2 years. The guys on patrol looked like they were having a lot more fun, and I was right. I was able to get moved out and get the honor to serve as a patrolman for 16 years, and then I was promoted to sergeant. During my time as a patrolman, I earned training up to being a collision reconstruction expert, drug recognition expert for impaired driving, and that was a big passion. What I did was working towards keeping the roadways safe across this county. Was elected sheriff in 2018, started a term in 2019, and 2019 was almost a normal year, except for starting at Tenasket. We picked up and had to start from scratch. Tenasket PD got rid of their police department, and the sheriff's office picked that up. And going through and negotiating with that was pretty much the first day in office for me. It was the first phone call I got from the press. That's what we need to start doing. So we picked that up and started basically a police department for services for Tenasket right out the gate. We all know what happened in 2021. Me and my team have gone through a lot of different things that are unprecedented. And we've made a lot of decisions and moved forward and kept operations moving and going right along. So I would say my reason to stay in this is my knowledge, my experience, and the relationships that we built across areas outside of law enforcement, not just dealing with law enforcement, but many different organizations across the county. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? So my name is Kevin Newport. I want to thank all you guys for coming to the forum tonight. It is important. Your vote does matter. Whichever candidate you're going to vote tonight. Some people say it's a waste of time. Sometimes I really get down on that. Everybody needs to vote. The vote counts. That being said, I grew up in Brewster, Washington. I graduated from Brewster High School in 1988. I left the county for a couple of years, went into construction, found out you don't make money working for family in construction, so I came back to Okanogan County. I basically got hired on by the sheriff's office in 1991. At the age of 21, I was the youngest deputy ever hired by the sheriff's office. I graduated the academy, came back and spent the next 28 years as one-year deputies on the street working every corner of the county. I recently retired out after 28 years and went to work for the Cowlitz Tribal Police Department, where I've been there for the last 3.5 years. I'm a sergeant there, currently working for a tribal police department, so I understand tribal law. I understand working with the tribe as well from that experience. When I worked in the sheriff's office, I took on a multitude of roles. I don't think there's anything that I didn't do short of traffic and maybe like car seat emphasis, things like that. But I'm going to read you a real quick list of what I did do when I was there. So I was 8 years National Guard, 30 years law enforcement. I was a drug task force supervisor, drug task force detective, canine handler of a drug dog named Fred. I was on the special response team. I was a response team leader. I was also on the clandestine lab team, which was used to process meth labs for evidence and prosecution. I was a reserve deputy coordinator, field training officer who trained probably 5 to 6 different deputies that have either been there or left. And the guild member at large, guild vice president, and guild president. I've been married for 30 years. I have 4 grandchildren, and I have 4 children and 12 grandchildren. 8 of the grandchildren live here in Omak, and I'm still a voting citizen of Okanogan County. I think that I'm the most qualified for this position because I'm from the sheriff's office, and I've been here the longest in that department. So thank you.
Good on the timing, you all. That was pretty good. So we're going to mix it up the second time around. So let's see. Tony, why don't you go first? I'll go second, and then wait a minute. No, Kevin can go second, and Paul will go last. There we go. Okay. So the question is, can you tell us something you believe each of your opponents has done well during their time as law enforcement officers?
Sure can. Both these guys are professionals and always are willing to help out. Start with that. So as Kevin and I both worked with the sheriff's office for a lot of years. We've worked together. I was his supervising sergeant for several years. He's always done quality investigations. And I know with Chief Boudreaux, he's always willing to help. He's continued to be willing to help. Everything that we need to do at the sheriff's office from whatever it is, he's always been willing to help out and go augment everything and work well together. So both professionals.
Kevin.
So I have absolutely zero bad things to say about either one of these guys. Tony was a great traffic officer. He's one of our best ones we've ever had work at the sheriff's office. He's also a great sergeant. Nobody's going to deny that. He had an ability to bring people together and work good on a squad. So That's my good things for Tony. As far as Paul Boudreaux goes, I don't think Paul never stopped smiling. I worked with Paul on different cases over here in Manhow Valley, and I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to put in a good word for him. I think he should stay over here because he's a good liaison for the Okanogan County Sheriff's. So I have total respect for Paul. I don't have any ill will in anything towards Paul. He's done a good job of bringing the Manhow Valley into the Okanogan Valley and helping us be 2 valleys in one.
Thanks, Kevin. Paul?
Again, super easy for me, at least for Tony, Sheriff Hawley. He was one hell of a sergeant. I helped to get him through, well, I believe helped to get him through. I was one of his big proponents to get to the sheriff's position, voted for him. And again, his guys loved him. And then on Kevin Newport, again, we worked numerous cases over here. He and I, we worked as if we were regular patrolmen. There was no hiccups. It wasn't I'm the deputy, you have to listen to me when we're out there. It's just, we worked together and did everything. We did our cases the way we need to get our cases done.
Thanks, you guys. That was good. And kudos again on the timing. You know, Val's not going to have much to do if you stay on this. Okay. Yeah. It gets a little trickier from here on in, right? So now we're into the questions that we've honed. So there's always a little bit of a preamble, and then you listen for so what's the question? Not too long, but just, and by the way, if you need me to repeat the question, I can. Or if you have a question about the question, you can do that. It won't cost you time. So this is about the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff's Department is the largest department in Okanogan County with a budget of about 4.8 million, or 20% of the overall county budget. And there's 30 something FTE in there or more. Most of them are sheriff's deputies. This requires a lot of administrative skill to adequately address the fiscal responsibility and accountability for a large, complex operation. So please assess the fiscal oversight and management oversight of the Okanogan County Sheriff's Department over the past 3 years. If elected, what would you improve? What would you change, and why? So Kevin, you're on, and let's see. We'll just go right down the line. Okay.
Well, overall, I think the biggest challenges facing the sheriff's office right now is the twofold. The first one is the field deputies. We've lost a record number of them in the field, and we're losing experience out the door for entry-level deputies. And the second one is the jail currently. We're losing massive amounts of jail corrections officers out of the jail, and that's been a hard strain on the people that are working down there. We're paying gobs and gobs of overtime to manage the jail right now in the form of requiring overtime for the employees that are down there, and it's causing fatigue and burnout. So overall, I think the sheriff's office budget-wise has been ran okay. It's just a matter of how are we going to bring more people back into Okanogan County to work for the Okanogan County Sheriff's Office, which includes the jail and also the field and other divisions where we're losing employees. So we need to come up with a retention strategy and a system in place, working with the commissioners to figure out how we're going to stop bleeding employees.
Thanks, Kevin. Tony?
Okay. So the actual overall budget for the sheriff's office is $12.8 million for the entire operation. As noted, there's many areas. The patrol is the 4.8. We also have our communications, the correction center, the records that are all under the sheriff's office for budgetary reasons. The manpower, making sure work gets done, the throughputs, and getting those things taken care of. The contracts that we deal with. So we have remained within budget all 3 years, and we are on task to do that again this 4th year. We constantly talk with the commissioners. What we've done is we've gone out with a strategy to show the commissioners exactly what we need. When I came into office, the deputies were driving vehicles that had over 200,000 miles on them, responding to calls. We were going to a lot of different things. We put that in front of the commissioners in a graph, and now we have those on task for being replaced at a timely manner to where we're not paying for all the repairs and having downtime with our deputies. So we're going to continue doing that as we move along in other areas. Okay, so the 12.8 million, as Tony said,
that really has no bearing in my world at this point, for the mere fact that I can't talk to what his budget is until I get there and see where that money is going. I need to see where the money's being spent. And so if you've ever done budgets, and again, I've had 2 different departments I've had to rebuild because of either bad management or whatever it was. The money itself, we know that's 12.8. I just don't know where it's going. I could ask for a public disclosure. It'll tell me everything that I need to know, where line item, but there's always money that moves places that you do not have accounted for. That is what I'm going to do. When I become your sheriff, November 9th, I will start being a sheriff. I may not do it on your dime, but I'll be doing it on mine. And we will figure out this budget immediately.
All right, thank you. So this time, first, second, third, okay, we'll just move down the line. So this is about constitutional democracy. There's an organization called the Constitutional Sheriff's Peace Officers Association, who claims that the sheriff of a county is the supreme law enforcement officer of that jurisdiction, and that he or she does not need to enforce laws that he or she deems unconstitutional. What's your position on this?
Well, if this is a semi.
Actually, it's Tony first.
Tony, sorry.
So Washington State clearly defines what the sheriff's role is in RCW. If you look up RCW 3628.010, it tells what the duties are for the sheriff. So the sheriff is the chief executor and chief law enforcement officer for the community. However, that doesn't mean we get to just ignore laws and not enforce laws and decide we can do whatever we want. There are some things that if they are up against the constitutional issue, and it's not a very extreme law. I'll use the example of in 2020 when we had the demonstrations, and the prosecutor at the time told me that I should be arresting people who are parading in the streets while there's a demonstration going on. My question to him was, when has that law ever been challenged up against the Second Amendment? He told me it had not. I told him I was not going to be the first one to do that in this state. That's not going to happen. So, and we have not done that. We handle things by dealing with people and going there. So if it is a constitutional issue, we will look into it. I've done this entire time, and then we'll make that decision based off what the Constitution is.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Paul?
I'll go to an example. Again, we're on a 1 minute. Yep. Okay. So real quick, we had a law passed 2 years ago, or a year ago. It's got changed since, thank God. Mental health. If you were having a crisis, if you had called a police officer to come to somebody who was having a crisis, we were not allowed to stay there as long as once we determined there was no immediate threat to their own safety or someone else's. I had to figure out how to work around that because I, as a police chief, did not have the ability to violate that law. As your sheriff, I would have that. I could deem that as an unjust law because it is not a value to that person. My constitutional oath to you and to the Washington State people is that I will uphold and protect all citizens, whether it be from themselves or others.
Thank you. Kevin?
I believe that when the sheriff takes the oath, he takes an oath to uphold the Constitution. It's quite simple with me. There's no gray area there. When the sheriff is voted in, he's voted in by the people, for the people, by the people of Okanogan County. That gives him the authority to run his county the way he sees fit. If he feels that a law is unconstitutional, he can make that decision on his own, whether or not he wants to follow that based upon the constitutionality of it. If it wants to have a legal challenge later on, let them do that. They challenge laws all the time, and you see them just recently, Roe v. Wade just get overturned. So just because people in Olympia and in DC pass laws doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be forced upon the county of Okanogan and the citizens therein. The sheriff is the most powerful position in Okanogan County. He has the most power, and that is again given to him by the people, for the people. And I represent you, not Olympia and not DC.
Okay, thank you. Question number 3, Paul, you go first this time. Kevin second, and third. In many different local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies are active in Okanogan County. Communication and coordination among them are very important and can be critical in emergency situations. how would you assess the relationship between the sheriff's department and other law enforcement agencies? Where do you think the relationships are working well, and where do you think improvement is possible or needed?
Well, communication is the number one thing that's going to work within all law enforcement. There is no communication that comes out of the sheriff's office at this moment. The example, again, we have the Covey murders. We were not told about anything that happened up there. Law enforcement had no clue. How did we get informed? By Facebook. There is a jail closure right now. We're on restriction. We still, as chief of police throughout the county, we do not know why the jail is closed. We're, of course, have ideas. I've been a detective, been doing it for a long time. I have my understandings of why. I do have jailers that talk to me. I have patrolmen that talk to me, and we have records and dispatch who talk to me. There are numerous things that are going on with this within the sheriff's office. Again, I have the greatest job in the world as your Twisp police chief, but I would not be running for sheriff if I did not know that something was broke and I could not fix it.
Thanks. Kevin?
So when I worked in the drug task force, I worked with the DEA, I worked with the FBI on cases all the time. I also worked with other agencies within Okanogan County, Perry County, and when I traveled out to do cases outside, I worked with other agencies such as Yakima County and different counties. It's all about communication, folks. If we're not communicating with these liaisons from each of these agencies that are responsible for the Okanogan County area, then we're already failed ourselves. We need to be reaching out, talking to these people already, and develop those relationships with those contacts. I did that with the drug task force. I just have to start that all over again. It's probably going to be the same people that I've already dealt with. It's just an open line of communication. I'll say one thing about what Paul said about open line of communication. It's real simple, folks. We need to establish a PIO for the Okanogan County Sheriff's Office, a public information officer. That person is responsible for getting information on cases when they come up, instead of everybody looking at each other going, well, who's going to say what, or what can we say? Any information sometimes is better than no information. And I think that we can improve in that area definitely with the Sheriff's Office, with the community.
Tony?
Okay, so over the last term, this 3.5 years that I've been sheriff, that's what I've done is develop relationships with organizations in law enforcement, outside of law enforcement. I go to meeting after meeting just to talk with people that are in different areas, whether it's public health, OVHC, how those areas all touch and intermingle with what the sheriff's office goal of public safety is. When it comes to comments that information wasn't given out, I have sent information out to the chiefs. I've had responses from Chief Boudreaux actually to those requests. Or somebody being a problem in your community, can we put them to where that person really needs an eye on them so we can deal with that to curb crime? Those things were sent out and Chief Boudreaux responded to them. So that he's not got information is not correct. We have gone through this time and time again. The jail has never been closed. There's restrictions, and those restrictions are the same as they've been when Jim Weed was sheriff the entire time when I started. So we've had that as a restriction. This has gone on, and after the restriction, that means those people come in. I then will approve people to go in that need to go in after that. But the restriction means they'll be called.
Okay, let's see. You,
We had a
yeah, okay. So we're done with the question, right? Have you? Yeah, okay. So first rebuttal. Go for it.
So the jail holds a population of 188 inmates. You're 188 inmates. You're running an average of 90 inmates. To get somebody booked in that doesn't meet the criteria of a felony, a mandatory arrest such as domestic violence or DUI, you have to call and get approval from the jail. That has not been given too often, and it's not being given out lightly. The two arguments for the jail currently are COVID restrictions, which I'm sorry, folks, we're over COVID. COVID's done. And the second one is that the prosecutor, your prosecutor, Albert Lynn, who's been appointed to run the prosecutor's office until an election comes up, has said to Tony, I need you to keep the jail closed, please, because I do not have any deputy prosecuting attorneys for district court. And here's the problem with that. If we don't start booking these low-level offenses, we've just sent the message to these criminals that they're going to continue to do this, and they don't care. And that's why we have an influx of crime, folks. Until we start doing the low-level crimes and start booking them into jail, their message to them is keep doing what you're doing, and that's going to happen.
Okay, thanks. So Kevin, you used one of your two rebuttals. Just a note for the people, we're going to cut off the new questions. So if you have a final question you want to get submitted for consideration, please wave your flag and Maria will pick it up. Okay, question number 4. So Kevin, we'll be starting with you again, okay? And it's about mandated changes in policing. So it's kind of a long preamble here, but it says in response to the killing of George Floyd as well as other killings of unarmed citizens by police over the last years, many states and municipalities around the country have passed laws to limit the use of deadly force and to increase accountability of law enforcement officers. In 2021, Washington State passed several laws restricting practices such as high-speed chases, use of neck holds, and use of force and physical restraint involving mental health patients, and there are others. The question is, how does this affect your enforcement process? And what are your strategies to ensure your deputies can still effectively carry out their duties while following the law?
Thank you for asking that one. That one I will answer. I'd like to answer this one. So yes, Inslee put some roadblocks in front of us in law enforcement that makes it a little bit more difficult to do our jobs. But at no time did he ever say you can't do your job. And looking at the laws, we can still do our job. We're still committing law enforcement on the west side where I work right now. We still arrest people. One of the things he took away was pursuits. Okay, so we're not going to pursue people unless it's a serious felony. Then we'll pursue. We're not allowed to grab a hold of somebody. We still grab a hold of somebody under reasonable suspicion. We think you might have committed a crime, so we're going to hold on to you, so you're not allowed to leave until we investigate it. Well, now we can't do that. We have to have what's called probable cause. If we have probable cause, we can grab a hold of you and hold you and say you're now under arrest for committing that crime because we have enough to arrest you and book you into jail. At no time did I just say we could not investigate crime. So your number one thing we need to get back to doing is just simply when somebody calls in, treating it like we did prior to COVID, investigate the crime and see if we can establish probable cause or not. And if we can establish probable cause, we can make the arrest. If we can't, then let's investigate the crime until we have nothing more we can do. And if we don't have probable cause, that's the way the case goes. But at least do the investigations.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay, well, I don't repeat all of what he said. I agree with most of it, except for the part that we can't use reasonable suspicion anymore, because that actually came back out of 2021 legislation due to a lot of pressure from the sheriffs contacting our legislators, and they actually corrected that and also gave it back to what Chief Boudreaux talked about earlier about we could not, after 2021, sorry, the 22 session that got fixed. In 21 is when they said we couldn't, that inhibited our ability to do community caretaking, and that came back here in this spring as well, because they were shown that it was the wrong way to do things. So they adjusted those, and we continue to talk with the legislature to get these things moved. I talk with the legislature quite often, especially our representatives out of the 7th, and they are very receptive to our needs in law enforcement, and I'll continue to talk to them as long as I'm your sheriff and keep battling for our community to make sure that the laws are changed back so that we can do everything we need to do. But we have never stopped investigating things, and that was my message from the very beginning when we had town hall meetings up in Tenasseau, explaining the impacts on the community.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so there's quite a few things. Again, I can just echo everything Tony said. They have changed the laws. That's one of the things that we had said. That just goes to say that laws get changed. We, part of legislature, I've been a chief of police, been part of WASPIC, which is the legislature, our chiefs and sheriffs conference or group, and been part of the legislative committee for a long time. I talked to and with many legislators throughout the state of Washington, able to talk to them, was instrumental here in talking and getting monies with the mayor for Twisp to be able to build the town hall that we have by talking to legislators, et cetera. That is the way we're going to get these laws changed back or fixed. And we, again, in Twisp, we investigate every single crime. When we have a shoplift in Hanks, we still investigate. We may have a complaint, not being able to book somebody into jail because of something special, felony level, whatever, but we still do our jobs. We do not, it is a roadblock, but we'll work around those roadblocks.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, Tony, you're up first, second, third, okay. The title of this is called Bridging the Political Divide. The preamble is, during the past couple of years, people across the country believe that the political divide has increased due to incendiary statements and misleading information in the press and on social media. Public officials have been bullied and threatened. Armed citizens have been directed to show up at peaceful protests. These things have happened in our county as well. Here's the question. So how will you use the office of the sheriff, not just as a law enforcement officer, but as a highly visible and influential elected official to decrease tensions, protect officials, and reduce the risk of violence?
Well, as has already been stated, first and foremost, we're going to investigate any allegations of things like that. Our director of public health received many threats. We investigate every one of those. Some were threats to her life for things going on through COVID, which is inappropriate. She's just doing her job. So that's not the way we deal with things in our county or in our country. So that we will investigate those. I alluded to earlier, the march in 2020. There was this march that was going to go on in OMAC. There was not a whole lot of activity going on as far as putting people together to understand what each side wanted. I sat down with the leadership of both of those groups and talked with them about how they were going to act, what we were going to do, what their intentions were. And they were able to come together and talk to find out they weren't really against each other. They were just presenting their message a different way. And very tense situation, and also brought all different law enforcement from across the country or across the county, including federal, to down there. Kept them out of sight with our plan, and things went, like I said, very tense, but they did go safely. And that's the goal, to make sure we keep providing public safety for the community.
Thanks. Paul?
Could you repeat it?
I'll just repeat the question, looking at the preamble. How would you use the office of the sheriff, not just as a law enforcement officer, but as a highly visible, influential elected official to decrease tensions, protect officials, and reduce the risk of violence?
Exactly the same thing that I've been doing as chief of police for the last 2 places. I get out, I talk to people, I have coffee with them, I'll go, I don't care who, what color your skin is, what your belief is, how you think. All I do is one thing: protect your life, protect everybody else's. I don't care if you're doing something illegal, we're going to do our job. If you're doing something that's constitutionally protected and are not against the law, I will have your back 100%. We will always be there for you, and I will make sure that communicate and be out there in the front, talking to all the different community members and businesses, etc.
Thanks. Kevin?
Well, they say the sheriff is the most political figure in the county, and I agree with that. I believe the sheriff's job is to be out in the community as much as he possibly can, engaging the different groups and the different community members and listening to their concerns when they have concerns. Getting to know these people that lead these different groups in Okanogan County is a plus for us, and we should have an open line of communication with them as well. Secondly, we should always commit law enforcement in Okanogan County and have the best principles and the best heart and mind for our citizens that vote us in as sheriff, and especially for the deputies. So when we're investigating crimes, we need to do the best job we can in trying to investigate those crimes and solve them as much as we can, because we don't want the citizens to have to feel like they have to take things in their own hand. That's never a good day. Public safety, I was thinking about, if I run for sheriff and I win, starting a community board where I can get different representatives from each area of the county to come into the sheriff's office, sit on a board and discuss issues from each different area, and let them be the voice of those different respective areas as a spokesman for that specific area, and engage them on a regular basis. And then the biggest one I can think of is, like I said, is engaging the different groups that are around the county and getting to know their leaders of those groups and having a good rapport with them.
Okay, thanks. We're moving along well. Only heard the bell once, right? You got one, okay. So this one is a similar question. It's related. Okanogan County has a very racially and diverse population, including many tribal members, Latinx, and immigrant farm workers who have a history of feeling marginalized or unfairly treated by law enforcement. Describe what you have done or what you would do to improve relations and increase trust in the fairness of the Sheriff's Department among all residents of Okanogan County. So this is you, Paul, I believe.
Okay. Well, I think I answered that on my last question, but again, I do not care what color, creed, person you are. I meet everybody. I will shake your hand. As Kevin said, I smile all the time. I get along with anybody. I don't care who it is. I get along with them. One of the greatest things when I came across the hill is when I started working in Okanogan County was the fact that everybody got along. I haven't seen the diversity until this last 2 years. When COVID hit and we started going into this separation between the two worlds, it's like we changed what Okanogan County was. People came across that hill and lost all understanding. We had people from the hills that stunk to high heaven, making their own soaps, from Lye to the Bellevueites, and everybody gets along. It was the greatest thing I ever saw. We need to get back to that. We need to be out there talking to people, making sure that everyone understands that the sheriff's office will help all people.
You frame the question one more time.
Describe, you got the preamble, right, about the diverse communities. Describe what you have done or what you would do to improve relations and increase trust in the fairness of the sheriff's department among all residents of Okanogan County.
Well, Okanogan County is diverse in our ethnicity, but we also need to remember that we have two valleys, and not always both valleys have the same ideals when it comes to what they would like to see for each one. First one is to start out and make sure that we're there for everybody in Okanogan County as a sheriff of both valleys and bringing them together. Secondly, I am a tribal police officer currently, so I understand sovereignty and I understand a totally different culture. And I really appreciate the time I've had there with the tribe to understand that. In addition to that, I think that the best way we can engage our community is to be out there contacting them on a regular basis. But if we can make our department diverse as possible, that would be great too. Having just men, women, different ethnicities to come in there and work would be a positive thing for the community. And like I said, I think the main thing is we just need to be engaging our community and showing them we're there for them by our actions and deeds.
Okay, thanks, Tony.
So as your sheriff and as a deputy the entire part of my career, I've never once faced any investigation or any approach to a situation based off of anything other than what we are investigating. And that's what I expect from my deputies as well. I've gone down to Pateros, was invited down there to talk as a drug recognition expert and give on a class to this group. They were all Spanish speaking. It was very difficult for me because I don't speak Spanish. So going through a translator, doing that whole thing. So being able to go out and engage, if somebody asks me to come talk about the issue that they have, I'm going to come talk about it. And then we'll go and find out if I need a translator, I'll get that translator there and work with that group to have that done. I also have a deputy who want to do outreach. I've supported him going outreach down into California and all across the state to communicate with the Hispanic population. And we have diverse across this entire county. Just treat people like people. It doesn't matter. Just be nice to them, be kind to people, and have some grace for people is what we need to start doing as a community.
Okay. We're doing good. Another question. This one sounds like it may be timely, and remind me where we are. Who was first? You're up next. Okay. This is about care and feeding of employees. Another preamble. The work of the sheriff's deputies is physically and emotionally demanding. Deputies are often exposed to some of the worst aspects of human behavior and expected to exercise discretion, care, compassion in difficult situations with high consequences. As first responders, they also frequently witness the results of trauma and violence, which can exact an emotional toll and affect their performance. PTSD and other disorders are not uncommon in law enforcement. So the question is, what do you do or would you do to ensure that you have the right people for the job, that they're adequately trained, and that they get the support and care they need?
Well, when deputies are hired, they do go through a polygraph and a psychological. That doesn't mean that they're bulletproof as far as their emotions go. A lot of agencies have programs set up in place. If an employee wants to call and talk to somebody or meet with a counselor or something, they can do that on their own, and it's anonymous. We don't get wrapped up in that as a sheriff. But as a sheriff, I believe we need to have those kind of programs in place for the employees and let them use it as much as they want to when they feel they need to. Secondly, when we're having a major incident or something where we believe trauma might have been involved in it for the employees, we need to reach out as a sheriff and as our administrators below me, I would expect them to, and sergeants included in that, reach out to that person and talk to them and make sure that they are okay. If we feel that they're not, then we need to be reaching out and doing the things that we can, offering them the services that we feel we can. So we should be engaged with all of our employees. And as a sheriff of a smaller agency like Okanogan County, I think we can get to know our deputies and we should know them one-on-one. We should know exactly who they are. We're too small to not know that.
Thanks, Kevin.
Don't think I can do this in a minute, but we'll try. So several things go on to that. So this last legislative session was very supportive of our communications officers and deputies across the state being labeled as first responders, which means a lot for them in getting into this realm. I've started a conversation with Jacqueline Maycomber about getting that recognition also for our corrections deputies, because our correction deputies are the first responders inside that correctional facility. They see a lot of things and they are the first ones there, and they should have that recognition as well for the professionals that they are. And so I've started that conversation with her. We've done debriefs for many years after serious instances for the deputies that are involved in that, the first responders, and get people around to talk about that, to try to get rid of the stigma, because in law enforcement, we are bad at each other. For if somebody wants to raise their hand and say, I have a problem, they get made fun of and lots of other things. And I've been trying to battle that. Did bring in Deer Hollow last week for all first responders across the county to go and sit through that and hear some stories from real law enforcement about what they've gone through to hope to break through some of that.
Thanks. I'm sorry there's only a minute. It really is a tough one. Paul.
Well, I can talk to what we've done over here, of course, and or in Skagit County when I was a chief over there. I work with my local Aramet. They have a couple of mental health type evaluation teams that we put together to help with suicidals, etc. My officers know that they have full access to them, and it's a one-on-one discussions if they need any. We have sent them to special trainings to understand that getting help is not bad. I've been through the mental health, talking to somebody, losing a fellow officer in the line of duty.
Okay, good. How you guys doing? Quite a pace here. Thank you. One more, and then we're going to go to questions from the community. Can we keep going for a while?
Yeah.
Okay. This is about substance abuse, mental health, and crime. These issues touch the lives of many individuals, families, and the community at large, and the Sheriff's Department is often the first responder to complaints about unruly or unlawful behavior. You know that this is getting a lot of press in Okanogan these days. Some would like to see harsher sentences for drug offenses, while others argue for better medical and social support systems to keep nonviolent offenders out of jails and prisons and improve their chances of recovery. The question is, describe your expertise in working with people with underlying addiction or mental health disorders, and what policies do you support? So this, I think, is you.
Okay, so since 2013, I've been a team member for the DUI court treatment team, which is treatment court. Some of the things that occurred with the Blake decision, if you're not aware of that, in 2020, or 2021, the Supreme Court decided that our simple possession of illicit substances law was unconstitutional. So they took that away from us. They then rewrote it, and what used to be a felony for simple possession of heroin is now a misdemeanor. After I've warned you 3 times, you should go get some treatment. And then the prosecutors encouraged to also get you into treatment by that law. So that's what's created a lot of issues in our community that are attached to drug use, because there isn't any punishment for being out and open and using. So in law enforcement, we have to follow the law. I can't arrest somebody and put them in jail if they haven't broken the law. And the way the law is written, that's what we're addressing to try to get fixed through the legislature. I think treatment courts are the best way to go. If somebody gets into custody and we get them into treatment courts, it doesn't work for everybody, but that gets them into get the skills and out in the community and provide them with the options of improving their lives.
Thanks. Paul?
100% agree with Tony on this one. The law that changed has been dramatically bad for the user. What it has done is it allowed the dealer to get away with stuff now because there's no number on the amount of drugs they have on them. We could get them with a pound of meth unless we know that they are a dealer. We have scales, baggies, everything else. We just have to take their dope, give them a little cart that says, here, please try to go get some help. And they get to walk away. We do that twice. We are in the process. Sheriff Hawley's chief of the dispatch has built a system that we can finally track it. And so if I make 2 warnings, then Sheriff Hawley, one of Sheriff Hawley's deputies gets somebody, they can now write a ticket for it. But it's just a ticket, they get to walk. And again, we're still to the point where we can't put people in jail, so that's another. But it does not get anybody into the system to get them help. And that's where that's what it was our benefit, was we were getting them into the system, getting them into drug court, getting them to do something.
Thanks, Paul. Kevin?
So they're both correct on the Blake law. The Blake law basically made simple possession of narcotics no longer a criminal offense unless they get 2 referrals, and at that point, the prosecutor can charge it whether they want to or not. That took the ability to use some of these people as informants to go after the drug dealers, because now it's no longer a crime necessarily. So fighting drugs with the local drug task force, now they got to find other people to use to go find these drug dealers. It's getting harder to be able to do these cases for drugs in the community. When it comes to mental health issue, Inslee and some of the people in DC have decided that we don't want to put mental health patients into jail. That's not where they belong. We need to get them into places where they could be taken care of or rehab. Well, unfortunately, Okanogan County and a lot of other counties don't have those facilities available. So we're left to deal with the aftermath of somebody in mental crisis on the street, and everybody's looking at the police to be able to throw them in jail. And we tell them simply, that's not necessarily the appropriate place for us to be able to put them. That's caused us some grief in ourselves. So one thing that I've suggested that we do, and I think Tony did talk about this, but I agree that we need to start doing this. We need to figure out how we're going to put mental health crisis workers on call and out there in the community to help us deal with these issues that we're dealing with every day.
Thanks, you guys. Kudos for, you really are doing a great job of being concise, and I know there's a lot more to say, but thank you. So we're I've been handed a number of questions from the group, and I'm going to read them. One is, this is regarding mass shootings. What specific initiatives regarding firearms would you support to address the tragedy of mass shootings in our communities? So this would be.
All right, one of the specialties that I have is active shooters, what we used to call it. Now it's active killing is what it's going on, and it is just nasty. What I would support is that we start enforcing the gun laws that we already have. That's the problem. We're not enforcing the laws that we have in place. We're just trying to make new laws to keep the innocent and make them into victims or into the guilty. That is one of our biggest problems we have. So I would, again, taking this platform in the sheriff's, as the sheriff, I have a lot of big voice in the world of use of force, use of firearms. That's one of my specialties. And I could talk circles around a lot of people when it comes to that type of stuff and get them to have knowledge of what's going on and why.
Thanks, Paul. Kevin.
Yes, school shootings go up. They're trying to take more guns away from law-abiding citizens. I think that's going to be a major issue coming up. I want to just talk about school shootings in general. We need to do something as a community and get ahead of this. And I think that the solution to this is going to have to be school resource officers, is my belief. And I think that we need to hit on that, and we need to look at it very seriously. Also, another thing we can do is grants for like door stops and things in the school. I have SWAT training, so I understand the dynamics of first active shooter, which is you bypass everything and go directly to the shooter. You don't sit and take care of anybody that might be injured. And before we get an incident like this in Okanogan County, we actually need to be getting ahead of it. Now, I honestly believe that that's going to be done by having a serious talk about having a plan for what we do when we respond to schools, practice those plans, and come ahead of it by having actual maybe school resource officers to talk about funding for that. We're going to find that.
Okay. So yeah, it's an absolute problem for sure. And thankfully, so far, we haven't had anything happen at our schools. I've been a proponent of that. I've gone through the school shield offered by the NRA. worked with schools in 2019, obviously 2020, no kids were going to school. After all that happened, 2021, it was really tough to do anything along those lines in the schools. As Chief Boudreaux talked, creating more laws doesn't make it any more illegal to hurt somebody. So creating more laws isn't really going to help us. We need to enforce the laws that are on the books, hold people accountable, and get our courts to sentence them into timely sentences that match what their crimes are and have them held there by the state, not just released. When COVID started, we released a bunch of people in our community that just re-victimized people. I've worked with the schools to make them less accessible, give them ideas about making where people just couldn't walk in. Most of our schools, the schools that the sheriff's office responds to, has locks, so you can't just walk in. It's an inconvenience for the public, but it's a safety measure for our children.
Thanks, you guys. Tough question. Next one is describe the degree to which you would cooperate with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency in the identification, location, and detainment of illegal immigrants. So that would be, I think that's you, Paul. All right.
No, I just didn't think I would.
Okay, that's Kevin. Sorry, I'm losing track here. You guys are doing great. I'm slipping.
Yeah, that's a real tough situation. I think Okanogan County currently is wrapped up in that as well.
I would simply say that we need to establish a relationship. We have a major crisis on the southern border. It's getting worse by the day. And we're having an issue with whether or not we can identify some of these criminals and we can actually put them into jail because the federal government doesn't want us to do that. I think the first step is to band together with our chiefs of police and our sheriffs across the state and come up with some solutions and air our frustration to not only Olympia, but to DC as well. I don't know if that's going to have much of an impact, but until that changes, it's going to be a tough road to hoe. So.
Tony, thanks, Kevin.
Can you repeat the question?
Describe the degree to which you would cooperate with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency in the identification, location, and detainment of illegal immigrants.
Okay, so the sheriff's office isn't concerned with people's immigration status. The sheriff's office is concerned with their criminal status and are they law abiding or not. If we go down that road, the sheriff's office and the county and you as taxpayers will be sued. The Keep Washington Working Act, there are lawyers out there that watch and they will sue the sheriff's office and the county if we get engaged into things about worrying about what somebody's immigration status is. Like I said before, I don't care what your color, creed, religion, any of that stuff is. We are focused on public safety and taking care of victims and dealing with that. So we work with the Border Patrol and ICE in several areas like human trafficking, drug trafficking, and things of those nature that they don't want us to work with. And I push back on that every time because the Border Patrol is a federal law enforcement organization. They are not just an immigration organization. So they do have full police powers and we continue to work with them and we will continue as long as I'm sheriff.
Paul?
Completely exactly the same as Tony. We do the same thing here. We do not do anything in reference to the actual immigrant. The person, if he commits a crime, that's when he gets looked at for other stuff, but we do not worry about any of that. We do work closely with them for, again, we have a huge traffic area when now the pass is open. Highway 20 is a corridor for all types of drugs and things coming through. We don't care if it's a Hispanic, white, black, it doesn't matter. If they're running drugs or committing a crime, we're going to commit law enforcement upon them.
Thanks. Let's see. So we're back to Tony, you start. There's a question from the crowd. It says, I'm a small business owner. We have been through over 2 years of COVID and the future is unclear. I do not want to be responsible for enforcing public health mandates. How do you perceive the role of the sheriff in supporting small business owners in this regard?
Well, as you said, to be supported. So there were some demonstrations in Okanogan, right outside the commissioner's hearing room, when a lot of the small businesses were shut down. I went out and talked to those people that were out there and understand their concerns. And I've been a proponent from the very beginning. Why is the big box store open and the small mom and pop store is closed? They have a much better ability to look and see what's being going on inside their store than a big box store, to make sure that things stay clean and people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. As far as at the very beginning, I put out a letter that said, don't call me just because somebody's not wearing a mask. If they're doing something else, they're being intimidating, they are being a bully, they are doing something that's disorderly, we'll deal with that. But there isn't the space to deal with somebody not wearing a mask. It's their right, their health right, and for them to do that if they want to or don't want to. There's no reason, in fact, to, again, having grace for people in our community and dealing with them and let them be themselves and handle their own health and welfare.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, on that one, I will talk to the business owners, the small business owners. We will not enforce a mandate per se. We're not going to go out and say, because you're not wearing a mask in that business, that we're going to remove you or do something of that nature. On the other hand, if you're the business owner and you want a mask on anybody who comes in that building, it's your right to tell people not to come into that business. If you don't like the way they look, you can tell them to leave. You have full ownership over your business. Now, could you be sued over something different besides a mask? No. Or yes, you could, but not the mask. The mask, it was a mandate. You were getting sued. Hanks got fined $10,000 because he didn't have a mask on somebody, and somebody, they said they ratted on him. Again, it's up to the individual business. It's up to you as a civilian or a citizen of Okanogan County and our United States. It's your right to decide what you want. This is my personal opinion again, but we're not going to enforce a mandate. We only enforce laws.
Thanks, Kevin.
So I was asked this by several people. It has actually 3 prongs to it: the mask mandate, COVID camps, and vaccine mandates. And I'm a strong proponent against all of those. They are unlawful. The mandates are not lawful, and they are a violation of your constitutional rights. And I do not believe we're ever going to get in that point. Matter of fact, we're never going to get in that point where I'm going to force that as a sheriff's office. If somebody calls me regarding somebody not wearing a mask in a store and it's a business owner, I'm going to take it up with the person that's not doing that because they want them gone. I'll respect that business owner, but if it's just simply somebody not wearing a mask and the business owner is not complaining, I'm not going to have an issue with that. We're not getting into mask mandates, COVID camps, or mandating vaccines in this county. It's unconstitutional.
Okay, couple more. Doing okay? What is a reasonable response from the sheriff's office during a wildfire event that threatens homes and lives? And what duties should the sheriff perform and deputies be expected to perform? So we are at, yeah.
Okay, we have a fire going on. The number one priority is to figure out with Department of Emergency Management, who is Mo Goodall, what is his needs outside, over and above anything that we're going to do in the law enforcement side. We are not going to act as an emergency responder at that point. We are the lawful side of it. If he needs us to go and start evictions or start not evictions, but notifications and tell people they need to leave, notify them what level we're in, we're going to be doing that. If he needs us to help shut down roads, we'll shut down roads. It is going to depend on what is needed in the time of the actual fire and where it is located. Understanding that we still have the rest of the county that we need to protect on regular lawful duties. And so we will incorporate every single agency that is available in this area, and we will request aid.
Thanks. Kevin.
So not too long ago, maybe several years ago, the sheriff used to be in charge of emergency management, and that was given up to the county, and it's now being ran by Mo Goodall. And as a sheriff, we're having wildfires. My job is to get with Mo and find out what resources we can give him from the sheriff's office to help protect property and lives to the best of our ability and keep law and order at the same time. And that's something that I would strongly do. And I just echo what Paul said, because I agree with him 100%, we have to work with our emergency management when it comes down to that. But the number one priority at that point is to save lives and property with the help of emergency management.
Okay. Tony.
I'll start with Mo's public service announcement. If you're not signed up for his emergency notifications, get signed up, because that's the easiest way for us to get to you. So he harps on that all the time. We utilize that quite a bit. We can utilize that when there's other instances going on, and he really wants to utilize that system. So we start with that because that can get the message to you way faster than I can get a deputy to you. The deputy's responding from even somewhere within that jurisdiction or that area that they're beat. It could be 20, 30 miles to get to that fire. So that's the easiest way to get that information. We have always worked with emergency management, go out, work with the teams, get the information out to the public, find out what that is. Let Mo Goodall put a lot of that out because he is the emergency manager for the county and also for many cities put into that. They take care of that for him. So we get that information out. Our deputies will go door to door as best we can. There's a lot of area. It's a big county, 5,400 square miles. And it takes a lot to go do that and puts our deputies in some dangerous situations. And we, of course, work with every law enforcement agency that's always willing to come help because we're all here for our community public safety.
And we all appreciate what the sheriff's deputies have done to, go deep into the night to find people. It's that's a tough situation. We have two more questions. We're done.
Wow.
Yeah,
I haven't used it for fun.
well,
I guess you got two.
you can, I don't know if you can retroactively. do
Well,
that. What is your opinion? Let's see. Yeah, what is your opinion of the way Okanogan County jails handled the COVID epidemic? And what are the current conditions? So we're back to Kevin.
I believe the initial response was fine with Delta variant. And I believe that we did what we could to do to try to protect the inmates, which we have an obligation to do as well as try to protect the citizens by policing. Somewhere along the way, though, I think we got overly COVID in the jail and we haven't opened up the jail yet. We're still on COVID restrictions and we're still at a position where the prosecutor is asking us not to book people into jail. I think that we can get to a point now where we should be able to balance bringing inmates in and booking them into jail with also providing police services to the tax-paying citizens to get these people off the street. It's not an all or nothing, folks. It can't be all for the citizens and nothing for the inmates, just like we can't infect other inmates at the same time, but yet give nothing back to the citizens. So we have to find the balance in this. And my balance is at this point in time, we do better cleaning in the jail and we just open up the jail. We do what we can to protect the inmates in there, at the same time provide law enforcement services to the public.
Fine, thank you.
So first I'll put the shout out to those that work inside the community or the corrections center. They have worked very hard to make sure that that place stayed operational. That was my goal this entire time. We've had many hospitals, we have many schools. We have one correction center for the entire county outside of the Caldwell Correction Center, which we can't utilize. So if we were to lose that, then we have no place to put people. So yes, I put booking restrictions on, and those restrictions mean these people will go in. Everybody else is a conversation, and that conversation ends with me. If somebody call on the street, I've allowed people to make those exceptions. We have exceptions just like the English language. It doesn't mean if you didn't do this, you won't go to jail. It means we need to talk about it because I have to make sure that both the inmates and the staff and their families are all safe. That is a responsibility of mine. And the jail, the way it is set up, built in 1984, was not built for anything like this. So we've had to make some changes in how do we utilize it and keep people away from each other and put them into tanks for a time being before they're put out in the general population. Because if we put them out there beforehand, we could have a big spread. We did have one spread to begin with, and we handled that very well.
Okay, thanks. Paul?
Well, I can't say that I can talk to it. I haven't, every deputy that I've talked to that comes out of the jail, they have no clue why it's closed. Talk to a patrol officers, they have no clue why it's closed. We're still in the level of COVID. Every other jail in the state is open. They are on some restriction of some sort, usually misdemeanors because they're too full. Ours is completely opposite. It does not make any sense. And again, I have ideas, but I can't say why the ideas are there because it's not cooperated. It's only knowledge from being a detective in my past.
Thank you all. One final question, and then you get 2 minutes each. Oh, we got a second challenge.
So when we talk about the jail and COVID infections, again, like I said, the jail has been on lockdown. And like Paul said, there's a lot of people that don't even understand why it's on lockdown when nobody's wearing masks out there anymore. I don't want to affect the inmates, and I don't want to affect the jail staff any more than we do, but we have an obligation to also protect the citizens from crime. And it seems like there's a lot of small crime going on out there that's not getting dealt with. And the citizens are paying the price for that. We're not finding the happy medium in this whole thing. The jail itself is falling apart. Folks, this is not for us at this point. This is a discussion we need to have with our commissioners, because it's not getting better. The jail's not fixing itself and doing away with contract inmates. Your money just went out the door. Where is the money going to come from to build a new jail? So we're just kicking the can down the road. At some point, we're going to have to address this issue of booking people into jail. And we're going to have to address the issue of when we're going to start holding people accountable for even the smaller crimes, to give them the message that we can't tolerate this. So at no time do I want to affect the inmates or the corrective staff, but they need to also be aware that it's time to open up the jail.
Okay, we have a rebuttal to the rebuttal. So, Tony.
Okay, so people saying that there's no information out there. If you check, I put out a very lengthy release about what's going on with the jail several months ago, because people were asking questions. So it was put out on our Facebook page and sent out so that people could have that information to the public for what's going on. As to the contract inmates from Douglas County came up unsentenced. I have no problem with contract inmates. I want them sentenced, because my corrections staff then had to shuttle them back and forth to court, do extra work. We were giving them a rate that was lower than we were charging our own people inside of our community to Douglas County. Why are we doing that? So I talked to the commissioners. This was causing us a big problem. They were a large problem inside of our corrections center as well. It caused a bunch of problems. So it wasn't beneficial. So we talked to them to get them to move that. Contract inmates that are already sentenced, no problem. Come in here, house you, feed you, no big deal. It's a mass holding area. COVID restrictions still apply in that area, and we are still legally responsible and financially responsible if somebody were to get sick and be sued for that. So it is still a concern inside of a correction center, just like it is in a convalescent center or anything like that. So it just is different on the street. We still have to do different things differently as far as operating a correction center.
Okay. No more. No. Okay. Thanks, Tony. Yeah. You can really go after him on the final question. Okay, so here's the final question, and then we'll go into closing. What are your thoughts on an undersheriff that isn't a Washington State certified law enforcement officer? And I think, Tony, this goes to you.
I absolutely, fully, completely support him. He's worth his weight in gold. He may not be or have been a law enforcement officer, but he did go through the equivalency academy on his own. So that allows him to do that. The state accepted me into doing that. He is a retired lieutenant colonel from the Army with the military police, and he operated very large organizations, much larger than Okanogan County Sheriff's Office. He has done great things in moving us forward. He comes in with an outside lens, not homegrown from inside the sheriff's office, to look at things about why are we doing it that way? Why aren't we doing it this way? And that's exactly why I put him in that position. I wanted somebody that would tell me exactly what needed to be said and why, and pull no punches. Lieutenant Colonel from the Army is not afraid to come express his opinion, I guarantee you. And he will tell you he's in the back of the room. So he's done a phenomenal job and worth his weight in gold. The undersheriff does not make arrests. The undersheriff provides the tools for our deputies to go out and do their jobs, and he does that job very well. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Paul, I have an opinion on this.
Well, again, not going to even talk negatively about Aaron, very smart individual. What I believe is he should have been put through the academy just to get his certification in the state of Washington. Again, we're down so many bodies that that position needs to be able to handle calls. He needs to be able to make arrests. He needs to be able to go out there, help investigate, and get the backing of the officers. If just alone having a colonel in the Army, 100% guaranteed. The problem is he does not have respect of the officers who have been in the dirt, getting their dirt, and have been doing it. Again, does that mean they should have respect for him? Yes, they have respect for the position, I'm sure. They have respect for the man, but they don't have that little bit extra that they needed to say, this is the reason why we're doing this. Okay, he needs to be able to be out there making arrests with somebody else. That's the only fault that I have against Aaron. Aaron is phenomenal.
Thanks, Paul. Kevin?
So I said when I ran for sheriff, I was gonna have every one of my administrators, they were gonna be commissioned law enforcement officer. It's because we've lost so many people out of the sheriff's office. We have to take an all hands on deck approach. Tony said that, you know, he's not there to work in the field necessarily. I disagree with that. We are so shorthanded. Everybody needs to be able to work and go out there and do stuff in the field at a moment's notice. He is not qualified to do that. He could not do that. Secondly, if we're having an issue where nobody can get a hold of the chief criminal deputy, nobody can get a hold of the sergeant, and Aaron's on call, this is not the slander, I'm just saying like it is. He's gonna be the guy giving the deputy the advice. I don't agree with that because he's not a commissioned law enforcement officer. So again, my point being is I just think that we're at a point here where it's gotta be an all hands on deck approach. And we're so shorthanded in the sheriff's office that anybody that can help in the field side of it should help. I hear administrators say all the time, well, you know, I'm not gonna do that. We can't do that. We can't afford to do that. That's not true, folks. That's just lip service.
Okay, Tony, I saw your paddle go up. Paul, did you raise your paddle or did you just move it?
I'll go after him.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I'll start with, you don't have to be a law enforcement officer to run for the office of sheriff. The only thing you have to be any certification for to run for public office is prosecutor and district court judge. You don't even have to be a lawyer to be a superior court judge. So the undersheriff being put in that position, like I said, that's not his job. He gives lots of advice to me. He knows when to defer that advice when it doesn't fall into his expertise. He's also intelligent enough to know when that's not his realm, and he defers that quite often when they call me. So this is not, somebody has to be minding the store. If you have everybody out that's doing the work and nobody's minding the store when that happens, that's my responsibility to go out and help those deputies do their job and augment on patrol and the chief of patrol to do that. Just like I go into the jail and I help in jail and I help with the courtroom security. All those things are my responsibility, absolutely. His responsibility is to make sure that the budget's taken care of, because that's the role that we've decided that he does, and make sure that they have their vehicles, which was, he was instrumental in making sure that they're not driving 200,000 plus mile vehicles anymore.
Well, we have, using up all your rebuttals there.
Using
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so the only thing that I will say negative to what Tony just said is the fact that you do have to be certified to be a sheriff. You have 90 days to get to the academy, go through the academy to be the sheriff. That being said, the number two's position is to take over as sheriff if the number one becomes incapacitated. That is impossible right now. He can take over, but he still has to get to the academy within 3 months. The problem is we don't have that time to go from a sheriff who's running the job to a now criminal, an undersheriff who's becoming the sheriff, to go to that. We're talking 6 months worth of time that we're losing a body who's running the ship. Now we're down to the third person in line, who's the chief of the road. Okay, chief criminal deputy. So again, it's not the fact that he's not certified, it's the fact that he should be certified so that he could take over if he had to.
Thanks for the clarifications. Okay, we're at the end of questions, and where you have 2 minutes each for a closing statement, and Paul's going to go first, and Kevin, and then Tony. Okay.
Yeah, with my experience, everything that's going on in the world, my ability to talk to legislators, my ability to talk with every community, every ethnicity throughout the valley. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, some other off the wall party. It does not matter. I will go out and communicate with you. All my deputies, I will have each deputy, again, once we get large enough back to staff, which is going to be a hard thing, they're going to be assigned a community. Each deputy is going to learn that community. If there's a complaint that they have, that community can talk to that deputy. He'll be in there communicating. They want to hold a community meeting, I'll be there. If there's an incident like up in Chesaw, the 2 murders, or the Loomis incident, Both of those should have had community meetings almost immediately. I will communicate with all of my staff and all of my fellow chiefs of police, all the different agencies that are law enforcement agencies within the county that need to know what is going on so that I have all eyes on deck, okay? One of the problems that I had with the Cheesaw thing, we had a murderer running around and we had an idea who it was, and they did not let any law enforcement, they didn't let Orville know, they didn't let Border Patrol know. I talked to both of their chiefs and their heads of command. Nobody knew who he was. And I asked one of the deputies, he goes, nope, we do not know who it is. They won't put it out. I then told him immediately, if one of these officers gets shot in a traffic stop, on a basic traffic stop, see a tail light out, they make a traffic stop, he gets shot, I will help that family sue, because that knowledge was there. 2 days later, we get notification through Facebook. That is wrong.
Okay, Kevin, and then Tony, you get to wrap it up.
I'm running for Okanogan County Sheriff because I want to be your sheriff. There's major problems going on in the sheriff's office currently. You have understaffing heading in the jail and also in the field. You have a jail that's falling apart. You have booking restrictions where nobody's hardly going to jail for anything. And on top of that, we have an issue with leadership and people leaving because they don't see the leadership standing behind them. They don't want to work there. I've been asked by the deputies to come back and run for sheriff. This isn't something I decided to do, folks. They've asked me to do it. I have their support. I can promise you that. And as your sheriff, I know that it's not going to be an easy road for me to be able to do the things that need to be done. But I do have 4 things that I want to do. If you grab one of my rap cards, it'll tell you my 4 primary goals. And it's just what I just got done telling you folks. Being the sheriff is an ultimate responsibility with a lot of power that goes with it. And that power needs to be used to better the lives of you, the Okanogan County citizens. At the same time, we're taking care of the inmates and other people in the community. And right now, that's not happening. And I want you to vote for me for sheriff so I can come back to Okanogan County and reestablish a strong sheriff's office with the right personnel in the right places, commissioned law enforcement officers, a strong jail, and I will strike up a dialogue with the commissioners about these shortcomings that are happening within the jail and pay scales and other things that need to be addressed to see if we can entice more people to come to work for Okanogan County. Until we do that, folks, I guarantee you it's going to continue to get worse, not better. Thank you.
Okay, Tony, you get the final word here.
Okay, so is there a hiring issue across the nation? Yes, there is. It's not just Okanogan County Sheriff's Office. So, I mean, hearing this for months about how terrible it is at the Sheriff's Office. And there may be a couple people, but we all have people that don't always agree with everything we do. At the end, I make the decisions that have gone on, and I take responsibility for all those. And I've always been open and honest to talk to anybody who wanted to come into my office and ask me questions wherever they're at. As far as communicating with those that need to know, if it's a very sensitive investigation, sometimes we don't release all the information out because we need to hold on to some information. So we have done that. Those choices have been made. Sometimes it's not fully developed and we're still working on it. And we talk with the prosecutor's office and we utilize some of their advice as we move forward as well. So we don't intentionally try to keep anybody from having information, but we do have to make sure that our investigation doesn't tip off somebody that we might be investigating. And that's a responsibility of law enforcement. And working in drug task force or anything else, or detectives should know that has to happen. We, it's been an honor and a privilege to be your sheriff for this last 3.5 years, 4 years. My goal is to continue to be your sheriff and continue moving forward. We have plans to move forward. We're starting a jail study about how we get that to be better. We were working with OVHC for mobile crisis response so that deputies aren't responding out to the community as much. If it's not a criminal aspect, that it's a crisis responder that goes out to that issue so that we can have people get the proper care that they need when it's dealing with our mental health issues. Deputies aren't trained in that. We're a jack of all trades and we're kind of just dealing with some symptoms and we have no idea how to deal with the cure because that's not what we do. So in law enforcement, we are there to investigate crimes and provide for public safety. We'll definitely help, but we need to switch that and we've been working hard for doing that. Thank you, and I really appreciate you guys all coming out tonight.
Well, thanks so much, all three of you. I thought you did a fabulous job of responding, being concise, and I think we got a good sense of who you are, what you stand for, and what you would bring to the office of sheriff. So let's give these guys a big hand. Don't mind sticking around. I think there are a lot of people that would love to, just chat with you and get to know you a little better. So good luck on the good luck on the campaign. Thanks all for coming. Really appreciate it.
Swing back.